In the Interstellar Academy of New Aether, there were two kinds of students, those who burned bright enough to blind you, and those who existed in the shadows between the lights. Mara Solis was the second kind, so thoroughly unremarkable that even the automated attendance system sometimes forgot to scan her badge. She sat in the back row of every class. She ate alone in the corner of the cafeteria, always the same meal, always the same small table near the emergency exit. Her uniform was pressed but plain. Her hair was pulled into a simple ponytail. She never raised her hand. She never caused trouble. She never spoke unless spoken to, and even then her answers were so short they barely disturbed the air. The other students, Kelvari warriors with bioluminescent tattoos, Drakhari twins who shared a single neural link, Zenith nobles draped in living metal armor, they all noticed each other. They competed, they clashed, they formed alliances that collapsed and reformed like planetary orbits. None of them noticed Mara. She is human, the Kelvari students would say, as though the word itself explained everything. The smallness, the quietness, the utter absence of visible power, and they were right, in a sense. Mara had no bioluminescence, no neural augmentations, no living armor. She had enrolled on an academic scholarship, one of 3 humans admitted that year under the Interspecies Integration Act. The other 2 had dropped out within the first semester, unable to bear the casual cruelty of beings who had never learned to see them as equals. Mara had stayed. She had simply stayed, silent and steady, like a stone in a river, letting everything rush past her. Commander Vael Drakon was everything Mara was not. He was the top-ranked combat student in the academy, a Drakhari of the high bloodline, nearly 7 feet tall, with silver-scaled skin that caught light like a mirror. His combat scores were legendary. His power level had been measured at Class 9, one of the highest ever recorded in an active student. He moved through the academy halls like a solar event. Everyone around him either orbited or fled. He had won the annual combat trial 4 years running. He was expected to win a 5th. No one had come close to challenging him, no one had dared, until the Thursday afternoon when the combat rankings were updated and Mara Solis appeared, without explanation, in the number 2 position. The academy hall erupted. Students crowded the holoboard, refreshing the data as if it might correct itself. Number 2, Mara Solis. Human. 3rd year. There had to be an error. The system must have glitched. A human. That silent, invisible girl who had never once participated in an open sparring match could not possibly hold the 2nd rank. But the data held, and when 3 separate administrators verified it, the silence that fell over New Aether Academy was the kind that precedes thunder. Vael saw the board. He stared at her name for exactly 4 seconds. Then he turned, found Mara sitting alone at her usual corner table, eating her usual meal, and walked toward her with the slow, deliberate stride of someone who has never once questioned whether they would win. "You," he said. His voice carried across the entire cafeteria, dropping every conversation like a stone dropped in water. Mara Solis. She looked up. Her eyes were dark brown, completely calm. She set down her fork. "Yes, I am challenging you to a formal duel. Combat trial arena, tomorrow at noon, in front of the full academy." He smiled. A cold, precise thing, sharp as a blade's edge. "You will accept, because the code of challenge binds you. And tomorrow, I will expose whatever trick or fraud placed your name on that board." The cafeteria held its breath. Every eye in the room fixed on Mara, waiting for the flinch, the trembling lip, the desperate excuse. Mara looked at him for a long moment. Then she picked up her fork again. "Noon," she said simply. "I'll be there." What the academy did not know, what no one knew, was that Mara Solis had been training since she was 6 years old. Not casually, not recreationally. She had trained the way deep water trains, invisibly, completely, without witness. Her mother had been a combat analyst for the Earth Defense Corps, one of the few humans who had spent decades studying the fighting forms of every known interstellar species: Drakhari precision strikes, Kelvari pressure point systems, Zenith force redirection techniques. She had written the definitive manual on cross-species combat theory, a document so thorough it was required reading at military academies across 14 systems. Then she had taught everything she knew to her daughter. Every morning before school, Mara had trained for 2 hours. Every evening, 2 more. Weekends, 4. For 12 years without interruption. She had sparred against training drones calibrated to Drakhari's speed and strength. She had studied thousands of hours of combat footage, She had mapped, memorized, and internalized the movement patterns of every major species in the known galaxy. She had never fought in public. Not because she couldn't, because she had been taught by her mother that the most dangerous weapon is the one the enemy doesn't know you have. The ranking had appeared because Mara had quietly, without drawing attention, completed every solo assessment in the Academy's combat curriculum, the ones most students ignored because they offered no social glory. She had scored perfect marks on all of them. The system, operating purely on data, had no choice but to rank her second. That night, in her small dormitory room, Mara did not lose sleep. She reviewed Vael Drakon's recorded fights, all 47 of them, for the third time. She already knew his patterns. She had known them for months, the same way she knew every student's patterns, out of habit, out of the discipline her mother had instilled so deeply it had become instinct. She set her alarm. She slept 8 hours. The combat trial arena was full for the first time in 2 years. Students filled every tier of the circular stadium. Faculty members stood at the observation deck. Someone had leaked the challenge to the Interstellar student network, and feeds were live broadcasting to 3 other academies. The air hummed with anticipation, with the particular electric cruelty of crowds that expect a public humiliation. Vael Drakon entered from the north gate in full ceremonial armor, silver scales gleaming, his Class 9 energy field crackling around him in visible arcs of violet lightning. The crowd cheered. He raised one fist. The cheering intensified. Mara entered from the south gate in her regular academy uniform. No armor, no visible energy field, no ceremony. She walked to the center of the arena with the same steady stride she used to walk to her corner table in the cafeteria. The crowd's noise dropped. Not out of respect, but out of confusion. Some people laughed. The laughter spread, rippled, grew. The referee announced the formal rules. Standard trial combat. First to 3 confirmed hits, or first opponent incapacitated. No lethal force. All species-specific power use permitted. He looked at Mara, waiting perhaps for her to ask for special accommodations or protections. She just nodded. Vael moved to his starting position. He rolled his neck. Crackling violet energy gathered in his hands, dense enough to be visible as solid light. He had never needed more than 30 seconds in any recorded match. Last chance, he said across the arena floor. Concede now. No shame. You are human. No one expects you to know better. Mara stood across from him. Her hands were loose at her sides. Her expression was the same expression she wore in the cafeteria, in the classroom, in the hallways. That particular quality of stillness that people had always mistaken for emptiness. It was not emptiness. It was focus. Begin whenever you're ready, she said. The marshal raised his hand. The arena went silent. The true silence this time. The kind that means everyone is holding their breath. He dropped his hand. Nobody in that arena would ever fully agree on what they saw in the next 3 seconds. Vael moved first, and he moved at full speed. Drakhari combat velocity, which the Academy's sensors had measured at 4.3 times human reaction time. He launched a precision energy strike at Mara's left shoulder, the standard opening sequence from his recorded pattern, the one that had landed on every single opponent in 47 matches. Mara was not where his strike landed. She had moved, not away but inside. She stepped inside his strike radius before it could fully extend into the exact geometric blind spot that her mother's manual had identified as the structural weakness of Drakhari combat form at close range. Her movement was not superhuman. It was not powered by any energy field. It was simply the product of 12 years of knowing, at a cellular level, precisely where to be. Her palm connected with his right forearm at the exact nerve cluster that disrupted Drakhari energy field generation. She had memorized its location from anatomical studies. One precise hit, his right energy field collapsed. He tried to pivot. She was already moving with him, her footwork mapping perfectly to the Drakhari pivot pattern she had studied in hundreds of hours of footage. Her elbow caught his collar joint, not hard enough to injure, precisely hard enough to break his balance, and as he stumbled, her foot swept his rear ankle in a Kelvari pressure redirection technique that dropped a being 3 times her weight as efficiently as gravity. Vael Drakon, Class 9, 4-time champion, 7 feet of silver-scaled power, hit the arena floor. Mara stood over him. Her breathing was even. She wasn't even winded. She extended 2 fingers and pressed them lightly but precisely to the pressure point at the base of his neck. a zenith incapacitation technique, the kind that required knowledge of alien anatomy so precise that most beings never bothered to learn it across species lines. 3 hits, she said quietly. Match. The marshal's sensors confirmed it. 3 contact points. All clean, all legal. Elapsed time from the starting signal, 2.9 seconds. The arena was completely silent. Mara stepped back. She offered Vael her hand. He stared at it for a long moment. At this human girl, this nobody, this invisible creature who had just done what no one in 4 years had managed to do, and something shifted in his silver eyes. Not rage. Something older and less comfortable than rage. He took her hand. She helped him up. The arena found its voice slowly, in pieces. First a single student in the upper tier, then a row, then a section, until the sound crashed down like a wave breaking over stone. Not the triumphant cheering that had greeted Vael's entrance, but something rawer, more uncertain, the noise of a crowd that had witnessed something it didn't have the vocabulary to process yet. Vael looked at Mara for a long time after the sound rose. "How?" he said. It was not quite a question. "I studied you," Mara said. "I've been studying everyone here for 3 years. Your opening strike always targets the left shoulder. Every single match. You've never varied it because it always works." She paused. "It works against people who don't know it's coming." "You're human," he said, as if still trying to reconcile the data. "Yes," she said. "We don't have energy fields or bioluminescence or neural links. We can't overpower a Class 9 Drakhari." She met his eyes steadily. "So we learn, we study, we prepare, and we wait for exactly the right moment." She almost smiled, a small, quiet thing, barely there. "That's been our strategy for a very long time." That evening the combat rankings updated. Mara Solis moved to number 1. The next morning, she sat at her corner table, eating her usual meal. But this time, the chair across from her was occupied. Vael Drakon set his tray down and sat without asking permission, or perhaps asking, in his way, simply by being there and being uncertain for the first time she had ever seen. "Teach me," he said, "the Kelveri technique, the zenith pressure points, all of it." Mara looked at him for a moment. Around the cafeteria she noticed, for the first time, other students glancing at them. Not with contempt, with something new and tentative, and very slightly afraid. "All right," she said, "but we start with the fundamentals, which are patience, observation, knowing when not to move." She looked at him evenly. "Those are harder than any technique. It takes years." Vael nodded slowly. He picked up his utensil and began to eat. For the first time in 3 years, Mara did not eat alone. The most dangerous weapon is the one the enemy doesn't know you have.